Imagine this. You are walking along a narrow, icy ridge. Beneath your feet, kilometers of emptiness. Every breath feels like it's through a straw, and the oxygen is running out. And suddenly, ahead, a dark silhouette. It's not your companion, it's a dead body. It sits or lies just as death left it, decades ago. And you realize he was once just like you. He too had a goal, a dream, a summit, but the mountain claimed him. Everest lures hundreds of climbers every year, but the price of this dream is monstrous. More than 300 dead, and 2/3 remain there, in the eternal ice. They are called the ghosts of Everest. Today we will tell the stories of those whose bodies have become grim landmarks on the way to the summit. Stories you can't look away from. Hello everyone, this is David and we're continuing. David Sharp, the man who was mistaken for a corpse. May 2006. David Sharp was a 34-year-old Briton. He wanted to climb Everest on a budget, without a team, without full support, with minimal oxygen. He ascended. He conquered the summit, but the descent turned into a nightmare. At an altitude of 8,500 meters, David took shelter in a small rocky niche, in the very cave where the body of Green Boots already lay. He was still alive, but his breathing was wheezy, his movements slow. More than 40 climbers passed by. Some thought he was already dead. Some noticed faint movement, but didn't dare to help. Helping there means putting your own life at risk. Sharp spent hours in agony, freezing and suffocating. His death caused a massive scandal. What is more important, another person's life or your own chance to survive? A year later, the Sherpas removed his body from the route, but the question Sharp left behind still haunts climbers. What would you do if you were there? Scott Fisher, the legend broken by the storm. 1996. Scott Fisher, the famous American guide, leader of Mountain Madness, strong, experienced, respected. But Everest makes no distinction between veterans and beginners. Fisher reached the summit, but on the way down it became clear he was sick. Symptoms of high-altitude pulmonary and cerebral edema. A storm struck the mountain. Snow, wind, zero visibility. His Sherpa, Lopsang, tried to lead him down, pulling him on a rope. But Scott grew weaker with every step. At 8,400 meters, Fisher collapsed. His lips turned blue. His breathing was ragged. He spoke about wanting to jump down, a clear sign of cerebral edema. The Sherpas tried to give him oxygen, but he no longer responded. That evening, one of the greatest guides in the world died alone, frozen in the blizzard. His body still remains on the triangle face. He became a symbol that even the strongest cannot cheat Everest. Rob Hall and Doug Hansen. Loyalty until the end. The same 1996 expedition. New Zealand guide Rob Hall and his client, Doug Hansen. Hansen moved slowly. The turnaround time had already passed. A storm was closing in. But Hall chose to wait for his client. He believed, you don't leave someone behind. They reached the summit too late. On the way down, Hansen collapsed. Without oxygen, exhausted, he could not go on. Hall refused to abandon him. Radio transmissions captured his desperate calls for help, but the storm made rescue impossible. The next day, frostbitten and dying, Hall still managed to speak to his wife on a satellite phone. His final words were for her. Hansen fell to his death. Hall perished on the slope. His body remains somewhere under the snow. Their story is a tragedy of devotion, proof that loyalty to a client can cost one's life. Hannelore Shmatz, the woman who became a ghost. 1979. German climber Hannelore Shmatz reached the summit with her husband and their team, but the way down proved far more terrifying than the ascent. Exhausted, she sat down on her backpack at 8,300 meters. She uttered just one phrase, water, and then she died. For many years her body remained there, eyes open, hair blowing in the wind. Thousands of climbers saw her. a haunting monument to the mountain's cruelty. Attempts to remove her body led to more deaths. In the end, the wind pushed her down the slope. But the memory of the woman on the backpack lingers still. Francys Arsen, Sleeping Beauty, 1998. Francys Arsen from the United States wanted to achieve the impossible, to climb without oxygen. She reached the summit, but the descent became fatal. They found her alive but exhausted. She whispered, "Don't leave me." They gave her oxygen, tried to bring her down, but failed. Her husband, Serge, went searching for her and perished himself. Francys lay right on the route, eyes closed, as if asleep. That's why she was called Everest's Sleeping Beauty. For a decade, her body greeted climbers. Only years later was it removed. But her image remained, a symbol of love and death on the highest point on Earth. George Mallory and Sandy Irvine. The Great Mystery, 1924. The British climbers George Mallory and Sandy Irvine. Their goal? To become the first to conquer Everest. They vanished into the clouds. No one knows whether they reached the summit. In 1999, Mallory's body was found. A rope around his waist, a broken leg, glasses in his pocket. Details that raised new questions. But the main thing, the photo of his wife, which he had promised to leave at the summit, was never found. Does that mean he reached it? If true, then it was they, not Hillary and Tenzing, who were the first, but there is no proof. Irvine's camera has never been recovered, and the mystery remains. The green boots, a silent guardian of the route. At 8,500 meters, for decades lay a climber in bright green boots. Everyone knew the spot. It meant the summit was near. Later it was discovered that this was most likely Tsewang Paljor, an Indian who died in the 1996 storm. In 2014, his body was moved, but years later, green boots was seen again. Everest is not just a mountain. It is a cemetery in the sky. Everybody there is a story of dreams, courage, and mistakes. Some climb for glory, some for themselves. But the mountain makes no distinction. Only one question remains. Is the summit worth risking everything? Everest stays silent. It only takes. Thank you to everyone who watched this video until the end. Subscribe, leave a like, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video.